See, I've never been cool, so I never had any delusion. I'm like, I know I'm not, but I'm smart and I'm creative, and that's what I got going for me.
Hey, it's Chris Sernel, and welcome to another episode of No Smoking, We're Rolling, the podcast where we do a deep dive into the creative process behind songs and artists that I love. Today's guest is a singer, songwriter, musician, America's Got Talent semifinalist, YouTube star, pop star, businesswoman, wife, mom-to-be, an all-around badass and amazing person. 10 years ago, she moved from her hometown of Boyceville, Wisconsin to Los Angeles and started posting cover songs on YouTube. Her big break came a few years later when her cover of the song Titanium absolutely exploded. The song has garnered over 200 million spins across all platforms. Record deal offers followed along with a wildly growing and rabid online fan base. She's had her songs on TV. She's performed on the Today Show with Kathy Lee and Hoda. I mentioned her crushing it on America's Got Talent. Her new album, Hollywood Dead, features a dozen original songs, and it is fantastic. Normally, I focus on just a single song in this podcast, but the whole album is too good to pick just one, so we're going to dig into the whole thing. Here to chat about the creation of Hollywood Dead is my friend Madilyn Bailey. Welcome, Madilyn.
Hi.
Did I get all that right?
You did. It was so good. It was so good.
On a personal note for my listeners, I had the great pleasure of producing Madilyn's Wiser EP, which came out in 2016. And I was listening back. I love working with you on that EP, and I still love those songs. So thanks for having me be a part of your world on that one, for one. And we were just talking offline. That was a few months before my first daughter was born. And now the tables have turned, and I'm really excited for you and Jimmy and your baby girl on the way.
Yeah. That's weird, isn't it?
It is. I remember slightly freaking out. Like, I think I was in LA and my wife was home, pregnant. I think she was in the emergency room a couple days before. So it was like frantic. Yeah, good times. Pregnancy's serious.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure how you were there, because I feel like I'm approaching the end and I'm like, I don't know how much more of this I can do. We didn't intentionally plan on getting pregnant and releasing an album at the same time. It just happened to coincide. No, but it's good, because I feel like having some work, some distraction from thinking about the pregnancy all the time has been really, really helpful.
Yeah, have a little something other than thinking about appointments and I got to go to the bathroom and I'm not feeling well. And it's nuts. It's nuts. So listening through the album, my first time through, I got Katy Perry meets Taylor Swift vibes. But then I also was like, man, there's a thread on this thing. It's not quite a concept album, but there's a thread. Did you have ideas for the sonics and the threads for this in the early stages? Was it something you thought about up front? Was it something that kind of came about as you were going through it? How did that happen?
Yeah, so the inception for Hollywood Dead, it actually came from a session with one of the songwriters I ended up writing a bunch of the songs with on the album. And funny enough, the song in that session didn't make the album, but it inspired the album. We were just joking about aging in the music industry, as a female. And I was like, oh, ha ha ha, yeah, I turned 30 this year, so I'm basically Hollywood Dead. And we just thought that was so funny. And I was like, wait, but that's a thing that you age so much faster in the industry, whereas 30, you're just beginning your adult life. But in Hollywood, you're 30, you walk into a room and you're like, oh my gosh, there's 9-year-olds. For America's Got Talent, there was a moment where I met Peter, who's one of the vocalists on this show, and he's 9 years old. And I was like, my YouTube channel is older than you. So I wanted to create an album that told my Hollywood story. And what I think is interesting is that sure, my experience with Hollywood was coming here, experiencing the industry and my story, but it aligns with really any journey that anybody goes on where they're starting something big, exciting, new, terrifying, going to college, falling in love, getting married, having a baby. They're all all of those experiences have a very similar thread of excitement and terror all mixed into one. And so when I was picking out the songs for the album, I really wanted it to describe starting the journey, getting there, being really excited, being green. So the top of the album is very poppy and exciting and happy. And then as it starts going, it starts getting a little more chaotic. which is what happens because you start seeing behind the curtain a little bit and you're like, I don't know, this is a little shady. I don't know what's happening. And then Hollywood Dead is like the moment where you kind of just accept that who you thought you needed to be in Hollywood, you have to let that person die. And then you have to let this other person emerge, this person who has more experience, has more skills, knows who she is, like what she wants. But like you kind of have to like go through that excitement phase and that like disillusionment phase to get to the point where you're like, yeah, I think I know what I want out of this industry and it's not what you're telling me that I should be. But then, of course, after the death of anything comes grief. So there's a section of the album that's a little like darker. And then after grief and anger, of course, comes hope, resolve, like acceptance. And then realizing like, this is what I want to be doing. There's literally nothing else I want to be doing besides this, even though it's like, this industry's crazy. There's terrible parts of it. There's also amazing parts of it. And so like coming back at it and being able to like experience Hollywood again now is just a very fun experience now.
I mean, you just encompass like my career and everybody else's career. Like you hit 30 and you go, I'm too old now. I got to quit. I have imposter syndrome. But then it happens again at 35 and 40. I'll just tell you that. So, you know, but, like what can save us from having to go through all this stuff? You almost have to experience it. You can't just take your word for it and say, oh yeah, I hit 30 of this. I'm not where my dreams are. Your dream initially was to be signed to a record deal and a big, I mean, I imagine when you started, that was what it was. And I was thinking about it. I was like, your career today, myself and everybody I know would rather have the career you have today than that career of sign with a record label, write songs for 4 years, somebody else tells you what to do, they drop you because you don't whatever. You're like 10 million YouTube subscribers, make your own album, call your own shots. I mean, it's a lot of work, but you have ultimate control, and I feel like you have the best career of anybody that I've talked to. And do you feel lucky sort of that it maybe didn't work out the way you thought it was gonna?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I totally came to LA and I was like, I'm gonna get here, I'm gonna get signed, I'm gonna be a pop star, I'm gonna be on the radio. And then it's just so interesting how like 10 years really changed the industry, but I think it changed it like faster and more rapidly than any other time in the music industry, because you went from like Spotify wasn't a thing when I started.
Right.
And even like being able to make money off of YouTube was not a thing when I started. Like the first 3 years you couldn't monetize videos, Spotify wasn't there. So you were still like downloading songs off of iTunes or you buying physical albums, right? So the industry really like shifted when I came onto the scene. So I think initially this idea of like, I need a label and I need radio maybe wasn't the wrong thought, but like, right. How did any of us know the industry was going to go the way that it did? And now that I'm like looking back on it, like the thing I cherish the most about being an independent artist is the freedom and the ability to creatively express myself when I want to, how I want to, and that really special connection that you have with your audience when you're the one who's like curating all of it and making all of the content yourself. Right. You get like a really like special intimate connection with your audience, which is really cool. I like reacting really fast. Like I like somebody dropping a song and then I cover it in 5 days. Like I like the reactive nature of like the internet in general. And so like being with a label where I feel like there's so much red tape and so many hoops to jump through, and by the time you do finally release your album, you're like, this is 2 years later. I'm not interested in any of this music.
Right. You write it today. Yeah, 2 years later, do I even care about this song? Do I like it? Is it who I am anymore? And I love what you said about the reactiveness of the internet and YouTube and Spotify and everything. And like, yeah, you don't have to ask somebody's permission or get a budget. Or it's like, hey, we're doing this. You said you were almost going to release it in 2020. You didn't, obviously. So you obviously started writing for this at least 3 years ago. Like, what's the beginning point of this whole thing?
Well, I decided I wanted to release the album. Like, I wanted an actual album, and I was going to name it Hollywood Dead. I think it was somewhere around this time last year was when I was like, this is what the name of the album is going to be, and I want to release it. And then kind of in like November was when I was like, oh, it's for sure. This is definitely happening. Some of the songs, like you said, were like, Sirius was... Yeah, I was going to release it in 2020. We had like a whole tour planned and it was all sold out. And then like a week before the tour started, lockdown happened. And I was like, you know what? This is just not the song to release. right now. No one wants a happy pop song. Yeah, so I saved that one. I think the album, it's a little mixture of some songs that I've written a few years ago. A lot of the songs were written within the last year or year and a half as well. Because once I knew what I wanted the album to be, then I was like, oh, I got to fill out the album with like different kinds of songs and tempos and moods, and that's been the coolest part about putting the album together, especially when you're just doing single releases. You don't really take a look at your discography from like a big picture view where you're like, well, what songs, if I were going to play 12 songs for somebody, how would these songs represent me as an artist? How would they show the different sides of me? But then also somehow when you're listening to them, they feel like they're supposed to be on the same album. It's not like a question you ask yourself very often, especially when you're just releasing like one song at a time. You're just trying to find like, what's the best one and release it. Right. So like putting together the album, to me, I was like, wow, this is like the coolest thing I could have done as an artist, to just an exercise for me to like be able to better understand myself and what kind of music I want to make and what I appreciate about my catalog and my music, my abilities. And I genuinely think like the art of the album, I think every artist should put together an album. Like if you're confused even a little bit about who you are or what you want to be, put together an album. By the time you get to the end of it, you'll know. Yeah.
Don't need therapy, just make an album and put it out, and it's self-discovery and the whole, the whole thing. You absolutely nailed the journey. It doesn't just feel like, hey, we wrote 12 singles, which is like what I think the label's trying to write 12 singles. They are 12 singles, but there's like, it's a journey, and there's darker stuff and there's happier stuff and there's tongue-in-cheek stuff. You're right. I don't think that happens unless you do an album. And it's funny that like you're suggesting people do an album, because the record label would say, don't do an album, write singles, just put out one song at a time and hope one of them sticks.
Yep. But what that creates is just like this frenzy of like, oh, this song's going viral right now, let's pour everything we have into this one viral song, and then that artist goes to release a second song and it doesn't do as well, right? Because you haven't like built a loyal fan base. You're just like, this is one really good song. And
right.
that's why I mean like taking a look at your discography from like a bigger point of view helps you know where you're headed as an artist.
Speaking of, how many songs did you kind of have in contention for the whole album? Was there 20? Was it 50? Was it like 15?
Yeah, I'd say that there was something like 20, maybe a few more. There's definitely a few that like didn't make the album, but I think we're probably going to do some sort of a like deluxe version where we release a few more of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I basically got to the point where I was like, we were like in the mixing process, and I was like, I want to be done. I'm like, I need to because at first we had 15 songs we're gonna make the album, and then I was like, no, I'm done.
Record labels, like, you spend a couple of years writing, recording, re-recording, videos, marketing. You guys did it all yourself. I mean, I know Jimmy helps out a ton. He's also the handsome guy in all the videos, which is great.
Yeah.
Did you have any help with like putting any of that stuff together, even just like setting up sessions? Obviously you had co-writers and producers helping, but that's a lot of work.
Yeah, I have a really amazing team. So I have a management company, lawyer, business manager. So there's a handful of people. I have directors that work on the music videos. I hired a creative director for the whole project to make sure that like all the imaging went together and all the videos feel like cohesive. And in general, I'd say a lot of it is me and Jimmy. A lot of it is I swear we had like hundreds of phone calls. Like, we've been planning this since November. When I say planning, like really, really planning it since November. We started shooting videos 6 weeks after I got pregnant was when when all the video shoots started, and I was like, oh, this is fun. Morning sickness and videos. Like every piece of content we've created for this album, I've been pregnant while doing.
That's amazing. I mean, like, what a story for the baby on the way. That's kind of a cool, special thing, though.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna make a video where I'm like, the doctor said take it easy, and this is all the stuff I did while I was pregnant with you. It's so much stuff.
Half of the album, when I was listening, felt like heartache, heartbreaky songs like Petals and Half in Love and Almost Happy and Wake Up Juliet, and half were like love songs. But like they all had a little bit of a darker edge, which was cool. Like Doomsday in LA is like a darker love song. Any Other Ways, kind of like, it's a love song, but it got a darker edge. Serious, even on first listen when I didn't have the lyrics, like looking at them was serious. I was like, is there a darkness to this? They're all a little darker, which makes them a little cooler too, by the way. And I kept thinking the whole time, so Madilyn is a happily married woman. Jimmy's the coolest dude in the world. Are these songs, are they all autobiographical? Are they going back in time a bit with some of like the heartache stuff? Or is it just experiences that you've had throughout your life? Or where does some of it come from?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I'm actually like, I wouldn't call myself a sad person, but I'm definitely a very like darkly emotional person. Like, I love like dark fantasy books. Like, I don't know, I'm just very moody, and I grew up on rock music too, so there's a little rock element throughout it. And I think something about rock and roll that's like that gives it its like flavor is that it's honest. And when you're really truly being honest, it's never 100% happy. Like, even when you're in like the most amazing marriage, you still fight. Like, even though I'm so happy about being pregnant, it was still so hard to get here. And also it's been like wild to watch my body change. And like, so I'm as happy as you can be about anything. There's always the other side of it where you're like, yeah, but it's hard, and these are the things that are hard. And I think the honesty in rock and roll music like kind of comes through in everything that I've written. Like, yeah, like you were saying, like even with like Sirius is a song about me saying, I don't want to fall in love with you, please stop, go away. And then he just keeps being awesome. And it's obviously about Jimmy, but I was like, it's just that idea of being like, I don't want something serious. Go away. Why are you making me fall in love with you? Stop it.
Right.
And like Doomsday in LA is another love song I wrote for Jimmy. Half this album was probably about Jimmy. The good songs. But even Doomsday was like me being like, yeah, you know what? If we died today, I would be really happy with our life and what we did, and like that I picked you, and that we found each other, and that we moved to LA. And because there's this whole thing when you move from a town like a small town in Wisconsin, all of our family is there, and you start wondering if like living in LA is like worth being away from your family. Yeah. Ultimately deciding it's been awesome. Right.
Yeah. And then you have a baby and you're like, oh, the built-in babysitter's not here. What the heck? What do we do?
I know. And I'm like, I don't want to move back to Wisconsin, but everyone's there. Like, literally, all my siblings moved back, and I have 6 siblings, 3 brothers, 3 sisters. Yep. So,
wow.
6 siblings. They're all back in Wisconsin now. All of Jimmy's brothers and sisters are in Wisconsin. All of our parents.
Yeah. My wife and I moved to LA because we were trying to have kids. It didn't happen. We moved to LA, and then 3 months later, after we stopped trying, we got pregnant, and they were like, oh shit, no, we got to move back home.
I'm going to resist it as long as I can. We'll see. I just keep saying, I won't know till the baby's here.
Honestly, it's hard. It's hard to know, and it's hard to tell. And you know what? They're a flight away too, coming out to visit. So it's all good either way. There's just a realism to all the songs. Like, even when you're happy, you're not 100% happy. Even when you're pregnant, like being a parent, man, if you don't want to like jump out the window the first like couple months of having a kid, you're not being honest with yourself. Like, people talk about it, it's like, no, you're gonna want to jump out the window. So I love that, and I love that about like all the songs, but Sirius in particular. Like, yeah, it's like, get away, I don't want to be your, I'm not ready, or I just don't want a boyfriend right now, I'm trying to focus on this music thing, and here we are. The 2020 version of that song, did it change at all between that version and the current version that's on the album?
No, it's exactly the same. But I'll say, when I first wrote it, so I wrote it at a writing camp that we had in France, and we were just like in this like castle with different rooms that they had turned into studios, and it's a little bit different than the day of the demo like that we created. Like, I recut my own vocals, and but aside from that, I'd say it stayed pretty true to what it was, which is very heavily like Katy Perry and like Robin inspired.
Yeah. It's awesome. Like, the first time I heard it, I just was like, boom, this is like a super smash. Yeah, my kids like instantly were on it, like right away. They're 5 and 7, rocking out to it and want to listen to it over. I mean, it's like an obvious, amazing pop banger, as I think you said in your Insta video.
Yeah.
When you guys were writing it, did you come in with the title? Did you have the concept? Where did that one kind of start when you guys were putting it together?
Yeah, they just started with that like light, like a clean electric guitar with like the tick 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 tick. And then it's funny, I have the voice notes because I was listening to them, and it just started with like the oh.
Yeah.
See, like, and then I think the line started being like, when did this get serious? Then we wrote the verses, then we wrote the chorus, which Doesn't happen that often. Usually I start with the chorus, but the verses just wanted to be written.
If anybody ever wants to start with the verse, I'm always like, we're going to write a great verse and then not going to be able to write a good chorus, and then we're going to be mad that we spent all of our time in the verse. So
I know, right?
I'm glad you guys nailed it. The music video of this is so cool. Is that a single shot the whole way? It's a single shot. I literally learned the entire song in reverse. So backwards, yeah. How hard is it to learn it's another language?
Yeah. I had convinced myself, I was like, I've done this before. This will be easier the second time. It kind of technically speaking, it was like I knew how to get the sounds and I knew how to figure it out. The first time it took forever just to figure out how to slow it down and how to reverse it and how to know you were doing it right. So at least I knew that, but dude, learning a whole song in reverse, probably never ever going to do it again. It was super hard, but also now I know it forever. I will know it forever.
Can you sing us a couple bars of the chorus backwards?
So the chorus is like, Sirius, 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 Ipsum Sabkabnem Mukpi, Yadam Nagi Benevistier of Pixar, Him Kimana Gonna there, now roads to that up, now Sirius. Like, I will never ever not know this song. And I swear for like 4 days after the shoot, all I was thinking about was that song. Because I was so stressed going into it, because I'm like, it's a one take. I have to get all of it completely right. Yeah, it was crazy.
That's like, you end up in therapy or in a mental hospital after something like that. That's insane.
Yeah. I definitely have a handful of useless skills from shooting these videos. Patty cake, reverse songs. Yeah.
Did you guys do multiple takes of it, or did you have to nail it in the one take too? Because I can't remember if there was any things that exploded or anything that needed to be nailed, or did you guys do it a bunch of times too?
We did it I think we ended up filming it 6 times, and we just picked the best take out of the 6. But the take we did, none of it was so planned. Where how if we had time, maybe we would have planned it where the exact time every time we'd go behind a pole, so then maybe you could swap out takes. But we didn't do that. It was the take we picked is one take from start to finish.
So cool. I loved it. And then as I watched it a couple times, it's like you start to put the story together, and then you're like, wait, I want to see this forwards now. I wanted to say it was worth it, all the effort of learning the song backwards and the whole thing. So amazing job. I love it.
Thank you.
So Doomsday in LA.
So much we didn't do, but I did it all. If by some miracle.
Another darkish love song to Jimmy that I love. My favorite line of the song is when you say that if the world ends, at least there won't be traffic.
Yeah, I know. Traffic's the worst, but also I was like, what would be, because there's a line in the second verse where it's you start telling jokes to put our minds at ease, and I'm like, Jimmy would. The world would literally be falling apart or ending, and he'd be making death jokes or end of the world jokes, and he'd make some joke about it being but at least tomorrow there won't be any traffic. Right. I was like, that's totally a joke he would tell.
Right, I love it. It's like the bright look at the bright side of shitty things. That's sort of what the song is a little bit too. And I love that. And I sort of love. I didn't know that you had the Lana Del Rey vibe in you. It's really cool. The vocal, the production. Was that an intentional thing from the beginning, or did you kind of just fall into that, or how did that happen?
Yeah, I was I went into the session and I was like, guys, we're going to write a song that's if Taylor Swift and Lana Del Rey, and this was before they did a collaboration together, by the way. I was like, if Lana Del Rey and Taylor Swift collaborated and made a song, this is what we're going to write today. And so I came in with the verse for that song, and then I wrote that one with Sophie Simmons, she was also the one that I was in the session with when we came up with the idea for the album, Hollywood Dead. She was so down to do a Taylor Swift, Lana Del Rey thing. Sophie Simmons, she's was just such a good writer. You can tell her any artist, and she can be you can see it in her head. She's putting the equation together of okay, you could tell her Ava Max meets Katy Perry, and she'd be doo-doo-doo-blah-blah, and she's okay, how about this? And then she'll just spit out the most Ava Max Katy Perry melody you've ever heard of, and you're like, wait, how did you do that so fast? She's so talented.
Is she Gene Simmons' daughter?
She is, yes, which is so funny because the music she makes is nothing like his music. When
I was
the opposite.
I saw Sophie Sims, and I'm like, I know Gene Simmons has, from Kiss, if anybody doesn't know, has a daughter named Sophie, so I'm like, it's got to be her. And I'm like, you know what, though? Like, Doomsday In, I was looking at the song she wrote, Doomsday in LA. Did she write Hollywood Dead, too, or no?
No, yes, she did. Yeah, she did write that one.
Okay, yeah. So I was like thinking, like, these are the songs her dad would dig. Like, there's like the Kiss influence, like there's the rock and roll. So I was feeling that on her stuff. I started to gravitate towards a lot of her songs too. The songs that you did with her on that stuff. So you mentioned rock and roll a little bit. Petals is my favorite song. Like,
yeah, you're picking me apart like petals. He loved me not.
you mentioned death metal in it, so I got really excited about the death metal. And then every time it's death metal, there's a little electric guitar thing that comes in. I'm like, all right, there's some electric guitar. I come from the rock world, but the picking me apart like Petals line is so good. It's so visual. The alliteration's great on it. Was that where you started with that song, or is that one that just kind of came out as you were going, or how did that? Yeah, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. I came into the session and I was like, it was one of those sessions where like I sat down and I'm sure I was like sounded so woo woo. So I was like, I don't know, guys. I'm just getting flowers. I'm getting petals. I'm getting flowers. I'm getting this idea of like this person who, like, I had a specific person who, like, when I came out to LA, I would say ruined LA for me, but like slowly over time just started doing horrible things. It wasn't romantically, but I was like, but it felt very similar in that way where I was like, oh, you are the worst. and like, but you love working with this person, or you love the relationship you have with them or whatever, but then they're just like slowly over time, they're just like ruining the idea of what love is, or like what this industry is to me. And so it took me like a really long time after this industry relationship before I like could trust people again. But I was like, in my head, I was like, it's petals, just one at a time until you are not a flower anymore. And you were when they found you, and that's why they liked you. But then when you're not a flower anymore, they don't want anything to do with you.
I love that, and I love the visual of that. It's like, like each petal, it's like pulling off a dream or a piece of your confidence or your something that is good about you, and then like you said, by the end you're gone, and you've been like kind of stripped clean of all the like good in your life. I knew this wasn't about Jimmy. I was like, this is not a Jimmy song. So
no, this is not one.
Poor guy. Tattoos and therapy.
And I could skip this hangover that'll last for a week. Instead I'll get tattoos and therapy.
I love that song, and I love sort of the like, it's chaotic and there's a lot of bad things, but you sort of have a tongue-in-cheek. Maybe it's the video that colors it for me too. But what's the story behind that? Is that it doesn't sound like the Madilyn that I know. Like, I don't know if do you have any tattoos or not?
No. So I was gonna get one. I was gonna get one for the video, and it was gonna be like Madilyn's first tattoo, and I was gonna do the whole thing, and like, but then I got pregnant. You're not supposed to get tattoos when you're pregnant, so I was like, oh, I can't. Ruined it. I've always wanted to do the tattoo. I'm a fan of tattoos. I think they're very cool. The title for the song was actually inspired by one of my friends, and maybe you know her. Her name's Rory. If you don't know her stuff, you should look it up. She's like super emo rock, like blowing up on TikTok. She's amazing.
Yeah.
It was like loosely inspired by my relationship with her. So I met her at the same writing camp in France that I wrote Serious at. And she is like super tatted, super like rock girl. But she also had just started getting into therapy, and she was sober, like newly sober. And she was talking about like her experience with recovery and addiction and therapy and how much it helped her. And I was like, girl, I love therapy too. Like, I'm also sober, but not in the sense of like, I don't know that I ever had like a huge problem with it. I just noticed it wasn't good for my lifestyle and my life and my vocals and all that stuff. But she was like a huge reason why I stopped drinking, because I was like, well, if you can do it, I can do it too. Yeah, so this song is like loosely based off of my relationship with her. And she's like, anytime I think about getting a drink or smoking or something, I'm gonna go get a tattoo. Or like anytime like I'm thinking about dating somebody who's toxic, I'm gonna call my therapist. And we just like really bonded over that idea of having these other vices, these other things to replace the negative ones. Because that the energy that comes with self-destructive habits is actually great energy. It's awesome energy. It's just it's just manipulated wrong. It's just placed in the wrong area. So if you take those urges to like do self-destructive things and you choose something that's like just better for you mentally, physically, you know, like you're going to head down a path of like all that energy that before was turning into this depression and anxiety. You're going to turn it into something that's like, oh, I'm creating really cool things in my life. And that was kind of the inspiration for the song. Is like I wanted it to feel chaotic. But I also wanted to feel anthemic. Like you're accepting the fact that you have these intrusive thoughts. You're not just pretending they don't exist, because that just doesn't work in life. Just pretend you don't have negative thoughts, that you don't pretend that like, oh, I don't think about how old I am all the time. I don't think about how, like the wrinkles on my eyes or whatever, or like, you know what I mean? Like you just have to admit you have those like dark thoughts. And then the question is, what are you going to do with them? Are you going to let them bring you down, or are you going to allow them to empower you instead?
One of the things I've learned is exercise. If I have something destructive or depression or something, like exercise is always a good use of whatever that energy is. Going on a walk, like nothing has ever been made worse by going on a walk, right? Like it's always at least it's equal or better after going on a walk. Sleeping. And I started
taking a nap exactly.
Yes. I mean, and a year ago, I finally, after like 10 years of I probably should talk to a therapist, I started talking to a therapist a year ago, and my life is so much better and cleaner. And I don't know if you're into therapy but yeah, I mean, like it's such a better vice than all the other things that could happen. I love that. And you're right. All those things have an energy. You just have to maybe move them to a different place. I have no tattoos either, so I don't know.
I know, well, like I'm not against it, and I actually want one. I'm just like, you know, I gotta wait till I'm not pregnant or not planning on getting pregnant soon.
Is it maybe like daughter's name or something like that? I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, something. Yeah. Well, I want to get like three. I want to get 3 stars on the back of my like behind my ear kind of situation, so I can cover it up. You know, like the first one, I want to make sure that like I have a way to cover it in case I'm like, ew, I hate it. But I want each star. So a star for me, a star for Jimmy, and then a star for a baby. And then every time I have a baby, I want to get another star. So yeah.
I love that idea. That's a great one, because you're a star, Jimmy's a star, and baby girl's a star for sure. So. I love that. I love that. Hollywood Dead. So title of the album. I love that. You said when you hit 30, you're Hollywood Dead. Actually, let's talk about ageism in the industry. Ryan Tedder recently said he thinks ageism it no longer exists in the industry. And I was like, man, I don't buy that for a second. Does it exist in our heads only? Or is it a real thing?
It's interesting, because I think what we are seeing is less of the ageism coming into play, where it's like if an artist is just good, an artist is good and people want to listen to their music. But I also will say that like social media is run by Gen Z and they kind of decide what's cool. So they tend to find things that are young and trendy cool, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it depends on where you spend your time. Because I spend a lot of my time on social media, and like I swear every other week I have to learn a new vocabulary word. I'm like, I don't like Riz. I'm like, okay, short for charisma. Means you're a player, you've got confidence. I'm like, I swear every other day I'm like, there's a new word. I'm like, okay, what does this one mean? But like, I'm trying, right? I'm trying to keep up with the kids.
Have you worked Riz into a song yet?
No, I have not worked. I probably won't, but at least I know what it means, right? But I think it's funny because like, I forget sometimes when I'm in writing sessions how young some of the writers are that I'm working with, and I'll reference something that I don't think's that old, and they're like, "What is even that?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, oh no, no! Pretend I didn't say it. I'm sorry."
that happened to me. I was working with a girl. She's on a TV show, unbelievable singer. She's 15. And I said, we're working on ad-libs, and I said, okay, this is your big Kelly Clarkson moment, going into this last chorus, like, give me like your big Kelly Clarkson thing. And she was just sort of like, just nothing. And I said, no, this is the Kelly Clarkson thing. And then I jokingly go, you know who Kelly Clarkson is, right? And she goes, a coach on The Voice? And I'm like, she's a coach on The Voice because I'm like 40-ish, and that's what she is. And when you're... She's not like the biggest pop star from the biggest like TV, American. Anyway, I was like, okay, I need to like age my references down. Like, I'm like, okay, Katy Perry might not even be young enough. Like, so then I'm like, okay, this is your Blackpink moment or your Ava Max moment. I'm trying to think. What the next one is.
Yeah, there you go.
Hollywood dead, just another D-list celebrity.
So Hollywood Dead. Tell me a little more about what the song specifically is about.
Yeah, I mean, it's about like the general idea of it is like I wanted to write a song that felt like I was kind of making fun of Hollywood while totally accepting that I am trying to do everything to make it in Hollywood, right? Like you can kind of make fun of like just going into an audition or for something and you're like, yeah, there's literally always going to be someone who's like skinnier, prettier, younger. There's always going to be the younger you. And I swear kids are just getting like more and more talented, like and then they have the access to the internet, so then you're seeing how talented these young kids are. But at the same time, I'm so happy to be 30. I'm so happy to not be in my 20s anymore.
Right.
Like you couldn't pay me to revisit and like go back into that mental space. I just feel like I'm so much more confident in who I am. I have so many more skills. I know my business really well. I know how to play tons of instruments. I can cut my own vocals. Like there's just so many things I can do now that when I was 22, I couldn't do. And I had no access to and no idea how I would even do it. I think when I was around 22 was when I started learning how to shoot all my own videos, edit my own videos. And at this point, I mean, Jimmy and I can basically do almost everything we need to do ourselves, which is really cool. I think what's funny about the song is like even, and also there's little rock references. So, right. So like the melody of the chorus is actually like, I sampled Beverly Hills by Weezer.
I was going to say that because I was singing. I'm like, Beverly Hills, Hollywood Dead. And then even like the like you have the yeah, totally. Okay, I noticed it and I was like, I don't know if it was intentional. I'm not going to bring it up, but yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So I was like, I think it would be funny because even that song is again making fun of being broke in Hollywood and in like Beverly Hills, but pretending you're not broke. You know that idea, yes. And I was like, it's perfect for this song. Like being like you're like the internet, you're always pretending you're like richer and more famous and more influential than you really are, and like you're just trying to put on this front and like even though there's a line about like, oh, in 15 seconds they won't remember who you are, right? Like it used to be 15 minutes of fame, right? And now it's like, I'm like, no, it's like 15 seconds of fame. It's even harder.
Right, which comes back to the fact that you have such a like huge your own fan base, like this group of people, millions of people that trust you, and you put out an album that people are going to listen to and digest and give you the benefit of the doubt, and because you put in the work for the last 15 years. Back to what you're saying about being older, you're 30, you're smarter, you said you were smarter, you're more confident.
I hope I am.
You can do stuff. You can do it all self-contained. Like I feel the same way about my career, but I wish I had sort of the energy and the idealism of 25, but the skills of 35 and the network of 35. But that's not how it works.
But that's why the industry is so cool. You can collaborate, you can write with younger writers, and you can get kind of that fun like energy. I work with a few people who are like within the last 2 years have just newly moved to LA, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I love that energy. I remember what it felt like when I first moved to LA. And if you can resist getting intimidated by the fact that you might be a decade older than some of the people that you're like working with or interacting with, like if you can get over that, like there's some really fun young people who just have like a really cool fresh take on the industry and a fresh take on music and how to produce and how to write. And it's so like if you can just humble yourself just enough to be able to like learn from them in the same way that maybe they might be also able to learn from you, I think I think there's always room.
Most of my collaborators are like that decade or, I mean, I work with one kid who's like 20. He's amazing. And I have no problem with humility. I'm always like, man, whatever you say is cool. We're going to go with it because I don't know what Riz means. And I don't know what, any of right? No, but it's, I think.
We need like a weekly newsletter for like people who are 30 or older, and you're like vocabulary words you need to know. people with kids, like my daughters they'll say stuff, and I'm like,
where are you hearing this? And I'm like, it's from YouTube, I guess, or their friend, and they're only 5 and 7, but they come home with words, and I'm just like, what is going on? Like, I thought I was cooler than I definitely am not cool anymore. So
see, I've never been cool, so I never had any delusion. I'm like, I know I'm not, but I'm smart and I'm creative, and that's what I got going for me.
just the recording process, was there a lot of like, did you do a lot of remote work? Was this a lot of in-person sessions? Was it Zoom sessions? Was it cut it together and then put it together apart? I live in Chicago and I do a ton of remote or all remote asynchronous work these days, and it's great. Tell me about your process a little bit.
I think most of the sessions were in person. I didn't really like the remote stuff. I only did a few remote sessions, and I was like, nah, I'll just learn how to produce my own vocals instead. That's what I'll spend my time doing. I'll just wait until we do in-person sessions again. I think the only one on the album that would have been remote, and it was like half remote, half in person. So I was in person with the producers, but the writer was in the UK. Yeah. Jordan Shaw was the writer on Any Other Way. And so he was like other side of the planet. I think that was actually one of the first songs I wrote, and I was like, ooh, I'm making an album. I don't know what it is yet, but this is the song. This is one of them. So I wrote Any Other Way as a love letter to the music industry. So I was on AGT at the time that I was writing this song, and AGT just reminded me of all the things that are like, how do you say it? Like the Wizard of Oz moment where you see behind the curtain and you're like, it's AGT is all of those things about Hollywood where you're like, oh, if I was 16 doing this would have ruined me. This would have destroyed me. Like going up on stage and having a judge like rip you to shreds, and then 5 minutes later have them be like, oh my gosh, I love you. You're so talented. And you're like, what is happening? Oh, so it's just for like entertainment purposes. Got it. Cool. So, but like that song, it was a moment of acceptance where you're like, yeah, no matter how like awful it gets, I still love making music. I still love singing. I would do AGT again just to be able to like reach the audience, to be able to perform. It was such a fun, cool experience. If I can take all of the like manipulation and producing and all of that, like all those things out of it, all those elements out of it, like it was a really fun experience. And I just, anytime I get to sing my songs for people, it's the dream. That's the dream, is to be able to just keep making music and having it resonate with large audiences of people. That song is, it sounds like it's a love letter to a person, but it's actually to music industry, to songwriting, to my songs, to my art. Yeah. Like there's one of the lines where it's like, you're the coffee I need in the morning. You're the note I can't find in my chorus. And I don't ever really think about it, but it's all I ever think about. Writing songs and music, I'm never like intentionally thinking about it, but I'm always writing songs. I'm always thinking about melodies. I'm always thinking about lyrics. It's literally, I can't have a conversation with somebody and they say something cool and I don't go, oh my gosh, I have to write that down. That's going to be a line in a song. So like music is all that I think about. I like eat, sleep, breathe it, but it's also the thing that like, you're the cause and the cure to my bad dreams. It's like, my pursuit of the music industry is like half of the issues and problems in my life have come from like people I've worked with in the industry, bad things that have happened to me, trauma from, you know, like what various industry experiences. But like, I love making music and I love my audience and I love what I get to do. So it's like,
when I was younger, I used to quit the music industry probably every other day. Now it's down to like every week. That's a good reminder, even just to myself, like, yes, it's the industry, but it's the love of writing and love of making music. And even if my kids and family are the only ones who hear the songs, that's okay too. And you're right. It's like just making music is the dream. The other stuff is, it's going to cause problems, but coming back to why did we start this in the first place, right? We started it because we just love making music and there was something magical about that.
Well, and you can't not make music. You can't stop doing it. And when you stop doing it, you physically, when I'm not writing songs and I'm not singing, I am unhappy. I'm unwell. I like get so sad. And then Jimmy will be like, have you written a song this week? Right. And I'm like, no, I haven't. And he's like, maybe go write a song. You'll feel better. Yes. You know, like, yeah, it's the thing you can't stop doing. You're not even thinking about doing it. You're just doing it.
That's huge. I was just thinking about it. Like, if I get too caught up in like the podcast and I get it down deep down like website and video, and it's like, I haven't written a song this week. Why am I kind of depressed? Oh, it's because I haven't written a song this week. I love that. Okay, I got to remember that.
So I've been rehearsing for my for a release party that I'm throwing for the Hollywood Dead, and I'm doing all like acoustic songs. And so I was rehearsing with the guitar player for the show. And after the rehearsal, I was like, I feel so good. I'm so happy. And Jimmy's like, yeah, duh. You just got done singing for 2 hours. Of course you're happy.
Right?
And I'm like, right.
You're so, well, this guy's smart. Right, that's huge. It's huge. Like, you don't think about it, but you're like, oh yeah, that's why I did this. I love creating, I love playing, I love performing. What's your favorite song on the album?
Ooh, my favorite like happy song is Serious. That's probably my favorite like boppy pop song. But I think like my favorite song is 3-2-1.
Okay, let's talk about it.
So I wrote that one with this writer. Her name's Liv. So she's one of the younger writers that I was saying. Like sometimes I forget how young she is that I'm writing with her. She's so talented. She's so cool. She's cool. Like I'm not. She's cool. And then the producer is Prince Fox. He did Hollywood Dead, Wake Up Juliet, and 3-2-1. So all the really rocky songs on the album. Yeah, this one was really fun because we actually created the track and then could not figure out what to write to it. But I was like, this has to go on the album. The track was so cool.
Yeah.
And then I took it home and started working on it and brought it back in. And I was like, guys, the song is called 3-2-1. Here it is. And I just like sang it for them.
Did the music first, lyrics first, melody first? Was it probably all the above on this album for between all the songs?
Oh yeah, every song is very, very different. There is no one process of like how I came up with all the songs. Some songs I would come into the studio, like with Doomsday, I had already written the verse, so I kind of knew what I wanted the song to be when I came in. Yeah. With like Serious, we started from completely scratch, and like I said, we wrote the verses before we wrote the chorus, which is not normally how you write pop songs. Yeah, 3-2-1, we created the track before we wrote even one melody or one lyric. That's
the way I often work. Like I create tracks and then kind of bring them to people, or a lot of my remote work is just like send it off to writers and tell them to do their best or worst, and we'll put it together from there. But that's the beauty of like they can start any way, like you said. It probably starts back when you're having a conversation with somebody and you're telling, like, hold on, I gotta write down that song title I just heard you say, and they think you're a crazy person. And, what's your favorite memory from creating the album?
I think like one of my favorite moments, like part of it was like when we were shooting the cover art for it. We also ended up shooting like some video content too that'll come out later, but it was just really cool because I was working, the creative director that I ended up hiring for this project is actually one of the first videographers I ever worked with in LA. We worked together and then we kind of went our own ways and like worked with different people and did different things. And then being able to come back together and work on the project again was like a really huge full circle moment, especially considering that the concept of the album is you starting in LA, going through your journey, and then coming back to the top of it and being just as excited to keep doing music. And it was kind of like our journey with my creative director. His name's Jade. It was just cool to see our relationship be on the same cycle. I was like, that was really fun. The imaging was so beautiful. The photos were shot by this really, really talented photographer named Lissy, and she's shot for like Tate McRae and Olivia Rodrigo, and like she's just so talented, also really young. Very cool. That whole shoot was really fun. Like I said, I was also pregnant, and I was like 6 weeks pregnant, so I just like heard the baby's heartbeat first time, and I was like shooting the cover art for the album with this creative director that I had known for a decade, and I was like, wow, this is a really like special moment to see it like all kind of coming together.
Do they shoot and then add some CGI to the picture after the fact?
Oh yeah, that's like her thing. The set to start with was already really cool, but then like her whole thing is like adding tons of like really amazing, brainy, visually beautiful things to the photos. Yeah.
Is there anything that you think people are going to miss about, maybe pick one of the singles or even the album in general?
People are probably going to think most of the songs on the album are like love songs or relationship songs. Half of the songs on the album are just my relationship with the music industry. It's not a person I was ever in love with, but like sometimes when you're working with somebody under a contract, it feels like you're married to them and you're going through a divorce. You know, when you break up, like, I don't know, like there's a lot of similarities between like the people you work with in the industry, because also a lot of what you do is creative and emotional, and you get really attached to stuff and people and relationships because you're pouring your heart into all of this stuff, and then people break your heart in other ways than just romantically. Let me say that.
It's crazy, and it's like, how did I not think about that? The whole time I was listening, I was going, who are these songs about? I never stopped to think like, oh yeah, this is about the relationship with my publisher or my manager or my lawyer, you know, whatever, or like a collaborator. Those are like mini relationships. And if it's a contract, it's like a marriage, or it's like a, you know, yeah, even worse. It's a family sometimes, and the family stabs you in the back. And I didn't think about it when I was listening to it. And I'm kind of mad that I missed some of that. But now I'm super excited to listen to it with those ears and that sort of those eyes to see it and hear it this time.
The reason like a lot of my songs end up being about like other types of relationships is I really didn't date a lot until I met Jimmy. I think I'd had like 3 serious relationships total in my life, and Jimmy's one of them. That's the kind of person I am, because like I know I'm an all or nothing person. Like I know if I fall in love with you, it's going to be really hard and really fast. So I just don't fall in love with people. I just like don't. I don't get involved. But I'm also kind of that way with friendships too, which is why it took me a really long time to make good friends. But I have really great friends now. Maybe it's good to be picky. I don't know. I've been working on this acoustic set for the release party for the album. And as I'm putting together these like acoustic arrangements for the songs, I'm like, oh, I'm Madilynifying my own songs. Like I'm taking my pop songs and I'm turning them into my like cover acoustic arrangements that I would do on my channel. And I was like, Is this a sign that I'm supposed to be making like acoustic pop music? Is that the sign? Because like if I'm taking these songs that I wrote and I'm turning them into my covers, I'm like, so yeah, I kind of think the next album is not going to be anything like this album.
What is the next album maybe going to be? Hollywood Dead Madilyn's version with the acoustic vibe on it?
Maybe. I mean, I think I do want to do a couple of the songs acoustically. But yeah, I think my next album, like my next project, I'm definitely heading in a much more organic direction. Kind of a return to what I started with on my channel with like, I don't know, even like the kind of the stuff that we worked on too was a little more like real instruments being involved in it. And
lightning round, here we go. Favorite song of all time?
I'll Be your crying shoulder. I'll be the greatest fan of your life. Yeah.
I love that song. Who sings that again?
Edwin McCain. Is that what it is?
Oh, Edwin McCain. Yeah.
I was making sure I wasn't naming a politician. I was like, am I going to get this wrong?
Is it John McCain?
Sorry, I'm pregnant. I'm pregnant. I have all these things. My brain is not working.
Have you ever covered that song?
I haven't, because I'm like nervous. It's like one of my favorites.
You gotta do it now. You gotta do it. I love it. Favorite song of like right now?
Oh gosh, Taylor Swift, Everything. I'm so sad because I'm not gonna go to her concert. So, you know,
pregnant woman walking around too dangerous.
Maybe I'm just being like overly sensitive because I'm sure there's tons of pregnant women going to like these concerts, but like you're technically not supposed to go really loud places when you're pregnant because the baby can hear everything and it can't like flood its ears, you know. Right. So look, I paid a lot of money for this baby, so we're gonna make sure that it comes out.
Ears are gonna be okay. We're gonna protect. No, I was like a normal person before my wife got pregnant, and then I became like crazy, protective, anxious, hypochondriac. Everything like just changes you in a crazy way. So I'm with you. I wouldn't go to the concert either. Favorite album of all time?
Born to Die, Lana Del Rey is amazing. Golden Hour, Casey Musgraves, amazing. I'm trying to think of like folklore, Taylor Swift, amazing.
Favorite book?
Favorite book? You don't know this because there's a whole category of TikTok that's called Book Talk, and Sarah J. Maas.
I'm on it. I'm on it. I love Book Talk. I read like 50 books.
So there's this author, Sarah J. Maas. So she wrote these books called the Throne of Glass series and the Court of Thorns and Roses series and the Crescent City series. Now, I was reading her books when I had to wait for all of them to come out individually. Okay, so like 9-10 years ago, before they were popular on Book Talk. But I sound like such a trendy like person. I'm like, oh, I love Sarah J. Maas books, and they're so cliche now. But I'm like, wait, I was reading these before you guys even knew they existed. There's some of the books in those series that are my favorite books of all time. They're just so good.
Would I like this?
Probably not, but you could try. The category is romantasy, which is like fantasy romance. Do you like fantasy books though?
I love fantasy books. My favorite book of all time is A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin.
Okay, so then John Gwynne might be a good author for you. Jimmy's been reading a lot of his books. He said that they're some of the best stuff he's read. And then also like Book Talk, Brandon Sanderson, if you haven't read any of Brandon Sanderson.
I started Mistborn maybe like a couple weeks ago. I love it. The book's a little long. Like I like 200 or 300 pages, and those are like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
The reason I started this podcast was just to get book recommendations from people, so this is
Yeah.
Guilty pleasure artist or band?
It used to be Taylor Swift. 5 years ago, if I went into a session and I was like, yeah, we're going to write a song that sounds like Taylor Swift, they'd be like, ugh. Now everybody's like on board, so I don't know.
Right.
I just feel a little smug now where I'm like, I told you guys, you're so dumb. She's awesome. Shut up. I've always thought she was awesome.
What song of yours that's out do you think people are sleeping on? Like maybe an older one.
My song Wisconsin, that's the slept on one. Because I think when people hear it and they really listen to it, they realize it's not just my song to Wisconsin. Like it's like everyone's song to their hometown. Like when you leave your hometown, you have to at some point. Even if it's just for a little while and you come back, but you have to make that exit from like that detachment from your roots, from your parents, from your old ideologies. You have to like be introduced to new things to like learn who you are and like what you actually think about things, and make sure that it's not just because that's what you've been influenced by your whole life, right? So
right.
I think people understand that, like when they listen to it, they're like, oh, this is everyone's experience with like leaving home and if it was the right decision. And yeah.
I've been very into like re-examining everything I've always thought. Like I homeschool my kids now. There's all sorts of things that like are completely.
Oh my gosh, I want to homeschool my kids. Okay, so we have to talk. I was homeschooled growing up, so I love.
Oh, I want to hear that too, because I want to be like, okay, I want to understand, like, because some homeschooled kids I know, they grow up and they resent it. You know, they're mad about it, and they're like, oh, my parents were this, and I'm like, I want to avoid that because I think there's so much benefit to homeschool. Okay, we'll talk offline about homeschooling.
Yeah.
You also said something that I really like too, and I think it's one of the special things about being a musician and actually releasing music and not letting it live on your hard drive. Like you can come out and it can do whatever, and it can be rediscovered. Like, so you're going to get new fans from Hollywood Dead. People are going to come in for the first time and find out, and then they're going to go, oh, she's been doing this for 15 years. Like, you can go back and you can go, wait, I can listen to Red Ribbon. I can listen to Wisconsin. I can listen to the Wiser EP. I can listen to all these awesome covers. And I love that. Like you said, you discover a new artist and then you can just start going back. It's such a cool thing. And it's fun when those songs that were slept on get rediscovered. And like even like think about Stranger Things, like the Kate Bush song, like she released it in 1980, whatever.
Oh yeah.
2022, it's a smash, the number one song. Mm-hmm. And I love that. And I think like Spotify and the internet has made it easier or infinitely easier to re-find and rediscover these old songs. And I don't know, I just love that about what we do. And it's like, it's a book, it's anything. It's like, put it out into the world. And even if it doesn't hit right away, who knows? Like, there's infinite amount of time in the world people can rediscover it. So I love that. I don't know if you have any thoughts on it, but.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the bravest thing an artist can do is actually just release the music. Because I can't tell you the number of times I've gotten almost to the finish line and then like was like, no, this song isn't right, and then just didn't release it. And there's nothing I regret more than like a song that you were ready to release making its way into your song graveyard that you just will never come out.
Right.
There's already too many songs in there.
Exactly, like your hard drive is probably just like mine with like maybe 1,000 songs that have been never heard, and there's like some gems in there, and you're like, wait a second, what was the, like you said, you take it almost to the finish line, and then some voice in your head talks you out of it, and it's like, man, be less precious.
Dude, but I swear that's a part of the creative process. I don't know, but I kind of think unless you're like super delusionally confident or you like are just ignorantly confident, like you just don't know. Like I think to me, everyone's like, are you so excited your album's coming out? And I'm like, honestly, I'm in the place where like, I'm happy I did it. I'm happy it's going to be out. I'm really nervous and I'm like trying to do everything I can do to not self-sabotage and to not like blow everything up that I've been working on for the last 6 months. Cause this is the point where you're like, is it even good? Are these songs even good? Like, what am I doing? These are these the worst songs I've written? I don't know.
Yes.
And you're like, no, stop it. Put the songs out.
I mean, imposter syndrome is a real thing. Like, there are definitely people in LA who do not have it, and it's unbelievable. And I'm slightly envious of it.
Yeah, but that's also why I'm happy that I'm 30 and releasing this album. Because if I was 20, I don't know that this album would come out. I don't know that I would release it. I'd be sitting on all these songs that are so good that I love so much that I really believe in. And like, I can tell you, I have never regretted releasing a song. Even if it didn't do what I wanted it to do, I've never regretted the process of actually just it being out there and having a chance, like somebody who needs to listen to that song hearing it. Great. So what was your favorite song on the album?
Petals is my favorite, I think. It's just...
Petals, yes, that's right, that's right.
As soon as it came on, the title initially, like you know, kind of caught me. The just sort of like fun but dark. It's like it's a dark song, but it's fun. It like still moves cool. The guitar in it and the picking me apart like Petals line just was. I was like, so good, man. I wish I could write that. That was actually the reason I knew your album was amazing is because about a dozen times as listening, I was going, man, I wish I came up with that. Man, I wish I came up with that. I wish I had that title. That melody's great. You know, so like. There was special moments throughout it, so people are going to love it, and I am stoked for you. Anything else that you want to mention about the album or anything that I missed?
I hope that like when people are listening to this album that like there is one song that will like meet you wherever you are on your so-called Hollywood dead journey, wherever it is. I feel like there's just going to be one song where you're like, this is where I'm at, or I've been through this exact thing. My hope is that by putting together an album that tells a story from start to finish, that even if your point is like you're really angry or you're really sad, you won't be in that place forever. That will not be where you are forever. And you will at some point appreciate the fact that you are going through it, that you've been through it, and you'll be a better person because of the entire journey that you've had to go through. So wherever you find yourself, don't get discouraged. You'll keep going. There'll be more stages. There'll be more. So
what's next? Is it just, it's the release show and then, I don't know, tour probably doesn't really happen because you got a baby.
No, because I'm going to have a baby. I know. Again, we didn't time this right, but like, you don't always get to plan it, right? Basically, album, there'll be a few more videos that'll come out like in September, October, November. And then November is when I have the baby. Going to take a little bit of time to just be a new mom. And then, you know, I'm hoping to put together some sort of deluxe version of the album that has like some acoustic songs, a few new songs, and then like wrap up the whole project. And then after that, I think I'll be like moving on from Hollywood Dead to something else really exciting.
So best place to find you, Instagram, YouTube, all the Spotify,
TikTok, Spotify. Yeah.
Got it. We won't give out your home address on this, so you're safe. Madilyn, thank you so much for taking the time. I'm a big fan, a huge fan. Like I said, I loved working with you back in the day, and I'm just so proud to see your awesome success and huge fan of the album. I can't say enough good things, so thanks so much for being on.
No, thanks for reaching out. And also thanks for like, I mean, you were one of the first people that like really believed in me and wanted to work with me and do a whole project with me. So like, I really, really appreciate that. Like, especially when you're very green and very young and don't have a lot of experience, like it was really awesome. And like, I feel like even the experience of tracking vocals with you and like tracking ad libs with you, like you have a really fun energy of like getting that kind of stuff out of people. So I feel like just the experience of having put together that EP and working together is definitely like helped build me as a vocalist and my confidence. So yeah.
Love it. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks for listening to my interview with Madilyn Bailey. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Every little bit helps as we're starting out with this channel. Thanks, and I'll see you on the next episode.